Hello everyone, and welcome back to Real Estate Savvy here on Northwest Digital News. I'm Kevin Hunter with Susan Wood and Kyle Torgerson here at the broadcast desk today. And I'll tell you what, if you are a first-time home buyer, or even if you're relatively new to the home market and you're thinking about how can I become an investor, because I'll tell you what, when you look at the top most successful people, I was mentioning this to somebody just the other day, that if you looked around you in your community, and you brought me the first 100 millionaires that you could find in your community, and because every community has plenty of them, you may not know who they are, but I'm just saying if you could identify 100 millionaires, bring them all to me, and I'll find 80 out of that 100 that are invested in real estate.
Yes, that is right.
So a really big chunk of them. And then some of them, that's their entire investment is real estate. So it's always part of the portfolio. So when you're thinking about emulating somebody who's got money and going places you want to go in your life, you'd best be thinking about real estate being one of those things. So let's talk about great houses to buy. And let's start first of all with the what you refer quite often, Susan, as the bones of the house.
Right.
What kind of bones does it have? And that's actually of really great interest to me as well. So let's bring up one of the pictures, Kyle, in the background that we were talking about earlier. And this particular house, well, it has some interesting things going on with it.
Oh, not this one. Whoops.
Yeah, everybody just went away. There we go.
Man. Hello.
Yeah, actually, I was looking for the previous house. There we go. That house. All right.
It definitely has bones.
Yeah, so I had a friend of mine send me a picture of a home even that was a church converted to a house.
Yeah.
And this one has somebody living in it too, but it has some interesting other characteristics.
The graveyard?
Like Wilmer buried in the front yard.
You'll never be alone.
And other tombstones. So this might actually creep somebody out.
A little bit, but actually, if you look at the home, the bones, just from the exterior, are good. The windows are not broke. It is a brick home, so it's well insulated. Even the roof, although green due to all the trees being around, I bet the roof is probably, has some life on it. So overall, it's not bad. I mean, if you obviously could overlook the graveyard, some people get creeped out by that. Others, find peace in it, I guess. But it's a cute little house. It's a cute little cottage.
Well, it'd be a quiet neighborhood. And if you like being the boss, you'd have a lot of people under you.
You'll save a lot of money.
A lot of people die to come see you, I know that, but you'll save a lot of money.
Yes.
And you could probably pick the home up for pretty cheap. It's not a huge sellability factor being in a graveyard, but it's a beautiful setting.
Okay, so let's ignore the fact that the graveyard is around the place. If you were thinking of a home that was like this, though, that was just out on any kind of a lot, you mentioned about the exterior, the windows. I actually even like, as a builder, I like that this place has a gable roof on it.
Yes.
And the reason being is you can go almost any direction out of this building if you wanted to be able to expand on it. So those are just some kind of general things. I mean, if I was looking at a house like this, it's things like the foundation, the structure. Susan mentioned the windows and the brick exterior, the roof line. The
electrical, the plumbing, all of it.
Yeah. So let's have a little discussion about if somebody's thinking about a first-time home to buy. There's a couple different ways you can go. You can buy something that's ready to move in.
Yes.
Or you could buy a fixer-upper.
Yes.
And I would kind of lean towards the fixer-upper, but you have to be kind of careful with what you're doing there.
Yeah, really, it's all about your intent. And let's face it, a lot of people don't have a lot of wherewithal, don't know much about how to build or what to do with it. You even have some single parents out there that, one, don't have the time or, have other things going or just don't know what to do. So they need to have something that is more move-in ready. And so there's a butt for every seat, as we say. And this little brown house, it's theoretically move-in ready.
And it's also a fixer-upper.
It is. You could find a ton of value in just doing some small little things. And YouTube's wonderful.
Yeah.
It is. It tells you how to do a lot of these things and how to do it easily, cheap, But look, the roof is good.
Mm-hmm.
You can tell by that. The gutters aren't pulling away. They seem to be okay. Even the exterior, without knowing what kind of exterior, it could be the cedar shake. It could be the asbestos type. It really depends.
Mm-hmm.
The windows are okay. The front door, I mean, I'm not huge on screen doors. Some people might be. Is okay. It does have a safety rail going down for the stairs. It's kind of hard to tell kind of what's going on because of the tree. But the garage in the back needs painted.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a fixer-upper. You can make money on this home.
Well, this is actually a perfect example, a real-life example, because this particular house, as a fixer-upper, just the way it's sat, sold last year in March for $68,000.
Right.
Now let's bring up let's show what somebody did to this house, Kyle, and we'll show a comparison next door. So this is actually what the house became. So when you look at the garage back there,
Right. It's done.
Susan, they did what you said.
Yeah.
They have changed the exterior. The gable on the front of the garage is cleaned up. It looks like it has a new garage door on it as well.
Yeah.
And
And they
then-
did landscaping.
Yeah, they did some landscaping. They put new siding on the outside of this house.
Yep.
Rough guess, what do you think they put into this home?
About 20 grand.
About 20 grand.
Maybe 30. Just depending on, the electrical, the plumbing. Typically speaking of the air of this home being probably close to the 20s. And its last update, I don't know when. The electrical box could have been a recalled box. The plumbing could have been bad or not PEX, I would assume. So various things are unknown about it. Typically speaking, because I am familiar with this area, the area takes on water under the homes quite often, so you have to put sump pumps in. Some of them do, some of them don't. Some already are equipped with sump pumps. As you talked about, there's not a lot of room to build one way or another due to the lot lines there. The neighbors of this particular home are not bad neighbors. It looks like they keep their homes up pretty good. Depending on what the back looks like, you can always add additional little storage sheds or various things like that, which will add value. So, and there you have it. And they also spent time on the backyard. It's completely fenced, which for a single parent or a parent of young children or any children sometimes
got
or
pets.
animals have pets,
Yeah.
it's great that it's fenced. That's a $10,000 savings right there.
So it's a little tiny house on a tiny lot.
Right.
But to show an example that this had potential, what I would generally be looking at is, because I love to expand homes, I love to actually change the footprint of the house. But this was still a good deal because they bought it for $68,000 last year. They put $20,000, maybe upwards of $30,000
Right.
into this house. So at max, they might have as much as 98 grand into the house.
Right.
Well, this house is on the market right now for $165,000.
Yeah.
So some things to take into consideration. So now this house is at 165. Your question would be, for a typical house on lots like this, is does it have that kind of market potential? Well, you did a little bit of homework on the general market in the area and other houses that are for sale or even pending right now. And
Or
what
have
did
sold.
and what did you learn about the market value of other homes where this house sits?
So the lowest one was about 90 grand.
Mm-hmm.
And the highest was 190. So there's a big variable there. They are spot on. It will sell. It's move-in ready. It's not my home, by the way, just so you all know. It's not my home. I'm not selling
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
But they did a good job. It is move-in ready. And like I said, because of its neighborhood and the neighbors surrounding it, that's one thing you always want to be aware of when you're purchasing a fixer-upper, is your neighbors have a lot to do with that. And
Yeah.
how they keep their home, or if they have jacked up cars or loud parties or screaming kids, barking dogs, take your pick. And the only thing you could really do to this home to add value, but you wouldn't because of its neighborhood can only hold so much value, is you could build up or back and up. But it wouldn't support it. You would be putting a lot more money into it than you could ever see out of it.
Well, they got it listed at 165 right now,
It'll
and the
sell.
market cap being at roughly
190.
190. There's really not any place you could go with this. So let's go back to the first-time home buyer.
Okay.
If I was looking at the house, right above me, this house here, I would probably pick that house up in a heartbeat. At $68,000
All day
last year,
long.
would have picked it up in a heartbeat.
All day long.
The house over here on above Kyle It's listed now at 165. I don't think of that as a great first-time home for someone, because although market always returns some, the market will always grow, and this will net some return for somebody who buys this
Eventually.
going down the road eventually, but it will be entirely market-driven, because there's really nothing you're going to do this house after this that's going to change its value really any relative to the other houses.
And you're absolutely right. So when you're looking, unfortunately we don't have interior pictures of before and after, which would probably help here, but because you have wherewithal, but to some, because I sell these homes all the time, so because some people don't, they just, when they don't have time and they don't understand how to do it, and it scares them. We all want to put our own footprint on something. So for me, I'm with you. I'd buy that $68,000 home all day long. The difference between investors and the average everyday person is investors generally buy cash, and they want to buy something that is roughly $1 or less a square foot. This home was sold for less than $1 a square foot. And so he or she or they did a great job, and they're going to get a great return on their investment. So at 165, you're a little bit over $200 a square foot, and they paid less than $1, a square foot. So
You mean $100?
I'm sorry, $100 a square foot.
$100, yeah.
Apologize, $100. $1 a square foot would be amazing.
That'd be crazy.
You and I'd be buying
Yeah.
it. So yeah, and it does have relatively good bones. I mean, as we all know, roofs are probably one of the most expensive things you can do to it, and so that is your primary concern, that and your foundation, making sure that it's on a slab and all that wonderful stuff. But yeah, so
Okay, let's take a look at another house example, because one of the other things that you want to take into consideration is size of the lot. Now, here's a house that's or could be more on the level of a condo or many of those townhouses.
Yes.
A lot of them are built this style, but if you look, I can't really show, but this house that's over here to my side is the same distance away from the line as the house that's over on the other side, on Kyle's side. Look how close these are. And it's kind of like this little small house we were looking at just before. And while that house was a good investment last year compared to this year, and with putting a little bit of money into it, that person grew their stake in the home very close to $100,000. This is a place, it's move-in ready. It's a relatively nice place for how small it is and everything else. But again, the only thing you're going to get out of this house is the market increases, and that's pretty much it.
yeah, like I try to tell people, oftentimes they don't understand when you have a brand new home like this, and let's say it's $300,000 for this home. I don't know what it is, but let's say it's $300,000, and then you have a home that's older, built in 1920, and it's $300,000, and like, well, this one's brand new, but if the one built in 1920, 100 years ago, almost, is $300,000 and can hold that value, and this one's $300,000 and holds that value, what's going to be worth more in 10 years? The older home.
The older house.
The older home will be.
Yeah.
They're built different. They're built better. And like you and I discussed when we were off air, I ran into a situation where I had a 3-year-old home, and there were some shingles on the roof that were lifted. So we called the manufacturer, because we all know you're supposed to have a 25-plus year warranty on your roof, and that's one thing everybody's, oh wow, I got 25 years on my roof. They refused to repair it because they said the workmanship warranty was only a year.
Yeah.
And how it was installed, even though it was their workmen that did it, they weren't going to do anything about it. So
in that case, a 25-year product warranty means absolutely nothing. Yes.
So when you are looking at things like that, those are things you really want to pay attention to. It's not just, oh, I've got 25 years on my roof. All that's saying is if the shingles themselves fail, they start peeling sooner than they should or whatever, then yes, they will, with a fight, come out and do it.
I'm going to come back to that in a moment, because there would be some ways of dealing with that. Let's show this lot layout of where this house, this is a single-story, 2-bedroom house that is well set back off the property line. Show that particular view right there. Okay, so this is basically an artist rendering of this same home, but we're even closer than where this a home like this is sitting off the property line. So when you look at, there's no houses over there to the right, opposite the garage. There's a good distance to the property line on this left side, directly above me here, and we're a decent distance off of the street. Now, when I showed you this house look the first time? What was the thing you said, hey, if I was going to buy this house, what would you do to it?
I'd finish off that garage, make it living space, and add a garage into the front. Period.
Yeah.
You've got more living space, and you've got a garage or a carport if, because typically you don't necessarily need a garage. You could put a tool shed in the back that holds your riding lawnmower, depending on how big your yard is, and hold your tools, maybe a little small workshop. And let's face it, we've all been to Home Depot, saw them for $1,200 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you've got a carport, you've got your tool shed, which is going to save you money in the long run, and more house. And you've instantly grown in value.
And look at that. This is a move-in ready house.
Yep.
So you can be living in it, finish the garage, do all the things that you talked about, and you can be there and have your move-in ready house and a opportunity to greatly grow the value of this house while
and
you're
not
in
touch the home, really, the aesthetics. And you and I spoke about, because it has a gable roof, as you said, you can add either direction, which is great.
Yeah.
But, to cost you less in the long run and make the most out of the bang for your buck, I'd finish that garage off.
Well, this end of the house is closest to me has 2 bedrooms in it. And let's say if you wanted to put a really nice master suite,
There you go.
this end of the house being a gable end would be really easy to add a nice master suite on the house with
absolutely.
with everything in it. It'd go to a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house immediately. You could still do the thing that you're talking about on the other end with the garage.
Yep.
And then bring that forward on the driveway because it has plenty of distance off the street. This house, if it was in a decent range price-wise, this is a house I would pick up in a heartbeat because how much you can do with it.
Oh, absolutely. And typically speaking, we're only in our homes for 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
And if you can make $100,000 in 5 years, what an amazing investment.
Bingo.
You cannot play the stock market and make that. You can't put it in the bank and make that. So real estate, they always say if you want to be a millionaire, you invest $1 million into real estate. Eventually it gets paid off, or you trade it or whatever. But you will quickly make your money back all day long, tenfold.
Yeah. So let's talk about layout of the home. I want to show a basic floor plan. This is not the floor plan of the house that we were just looking at.
Okay.
But this is kind of what I call a hallway house. But you can see from the way the walls are laid out and the structure of this home, again, this is a really basic gable structure from one end to the other. Roof line runs right along just above that interior. I have a blue pen here so you can see it. But right along that interior wall, that's where the roof line runs right through the house. But really basic floor plan in here. You have the kitchen right next to me. The dining area is right above Susan. You have like a little living room lounge area there at the other end. So this is like really a wide open floor plan for one.
Basic and very easy to do anything with.
Yeah, and again, if you wanted to make some modifications to this, you can really go out any side of this house.
Yes.
I like the floor plan because of how many options it presents for you.
Oh, absolutely. And with the last picture you showed with the home, it being so far away from its setbacks, it's endless. Endless. You can do whatever you wanted with it.
So yeah, simple, easy to adapt floor plans. Yeah. This particular house, like when you look at the kitchen, it's a simple kitchen layout, basically an L kitchen. If I wasn't going to change the layout of this home at all, but I just wanted to make the interior of it more attractive and maybe boost its market value, I'd probably put a work island right in the kitchen area there.
Yes.
If it's on a crawl space or whatever, run plumbing up to it and add another sink there, maybe a cooktop there. So that'd be some cool stuff that you could do as far as the kitchen is concerned. Maybe I'd go across the hallway and look at the bathroom and go, how can I make the bathroom there? I look at it and I see elbow bangers like everywhere in there.
Right.
From the way they got the toilet walled off and then the tight space between the vanity and the sink and stuff like that. So I might consider opening that bathroom up a little bit and give that a more comfortable feel.
Right.
Could you imagine somebody going into that bathroom with a wheelchair as an example?
No.
And navigating that Z floor plan?
No.
Yeah.
Not even close. Well, and it's close enough to bedroom 2 that you could make a small little bathroom in there.
It could
for a master.
function in a way as a master suite.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Or even taking a little bit, depending on, obviously the floor plan, you could take bedroom 1 and take a little bit of the front room or the lounge and make a guest bath there and actually make that your master bath.
You sure could.
So it also gives it value that way.
A lot of potential.
Yes.
Let's talk about mechanicals in the house. If you're a first-time buyer, one of the things you want to be aware of is the mechanical room. So like this is actually a very modern, up-to-date mechanical room. You might not see this in your so-called, most likely you won't see this in your so-called fixer-upper house.
Yeah, no.
But I look here, I see a in-floor heating system that's there above Kyle. There's other, even look at the water heater. This is a well-insulated, likely to be next to new water heater that's in this. Show one of the other, because we've got another example of a mechanical room, and I want to just show, you made a comment about this particular one. So we're seeing the furnaces, the cooling systems here off to the right. But then on the left, we've got this water heater and a whole ton of water treatment systems. What does this tell you, maybe, about the mechanics in this house?
Oh boy. It tells me they have very hard water, for one. They're concerned about it. They've got a holding tank from the looks of it. That the well probably doesn't, in our area, it's 3 to 5 gallons per minute, so it probably doesn't sustain that. It might. Overall, they're worried. But the nice thing is if you go in to buy a home like this, you don't have to go through that expense. It's already done for you, and it's obviously done very well, and it's probably a good $50,000 plus system sitting there. So it's an added expense that you don't have to deal with. It wouldn't scare me, but...
Well, I'm glad you mentioned even the cost of all the mechanicals that can go in that room, because if you're buying a fixer-upper, make sure you take a look, poke your nose into these mechanical rooms, because if they got a 35-year furnace, year-old furnace in there, and then they got a 30-year-old water heater in there, and like everything in there is, and you can actually look on the equipment or look the equipment up online and say, what's the expected life expectancy of
25 years.
25 years, and you're like, whoa, borrowed time on everything that's in there. And you go, so we go back to this house that we said was a good fixer-upper when they bought for $68,000, maybe put $20,000 into it. If their mechanicals were all right at the end of their life, you might be putting $10,000 on the low side, but more like $20,000 just into mechanics in that house. And you might want to be aware of that, because you were hoping to side the house and put new shingles and new windows and other things in the house with that 20 grand. Just be aware of what's in the mechanic room.
Yeah, we call that lipstick on a pig. And for instance, I was at a home that I put an offer in on, not personally, but for a client, and there was a crack in the foundation about that thick.
Yeah.
And it ran from one end of the house to the other. So I called. I said, well, I'm a little concerned. This is an FHA, but for any type of buyer, I'm actually concerned. And she goes, oh, it's fine. It's been there since 1920, the home. I said, but now the walls are bowing. And she goes, oh, it'll be fine. No, I'm not going to put somebody in that home and hope that their top floor doesn't land in their bottom floor soon. So there are many sides to redoing a home, and that's one thing that people forget. I'd rather sell you a home, or I'd rather put you in a home that the bones are good and it's cosmetic, versus it already being done and the bones are just falling apart, 30 years old. The other side of that is, just because it is 30 years old, it doesn't mean it's clunking out. It still might be operating. So, I don't know.
When you're talking about a bowed foundation wall.
Walls, yeah.
And it's cracked. And I'm going, somebody failed to do proper drain tile around the foundation. The soil has built up a ton of what's called hydrostatic pressure. And it can push a wall and if it's already bowed and you're seeing some crack in there, that's not a situation that's going to be okay. It's a situation that's only going to get worse.
It is. And whether it's been there 1920, 100 years, or whether it's been there 200 years or 20 years, a foundation crack is not a good thing.
Yeah.
So.
All right, so let's talk about the last piece that you might consider as far as a first-time home buyer. If you have a skill set, and you maybe have friends who have skill sets in the building area, consider buying an empty lot. a buildable lot.
Absolutely.
So here, this first one that we're looking at, look at the house that's over there.
Value.
Yeah. I see 1, 2, 3, I see 5 garage doors off this end of the house.
Right.
How big is the freaking house sitting
Right.
over there? I mean, so how much potential do you have? Now, you're not going to want to buy this lot and put a 1,800 square foot house here, because you will absolutely piss off that neighbor.
Right.
To the
You don't
right.
want an Adair home or
Yeah.
a Highline, or
Yeah.
unless you're going to go to the top end of their custom builds. But no, yeah, you are. It's only going to bring their value down. Them having that house there brings your value of land. So the big question with this land is, are you on well and septic?
Yep.
You know, and if not, then is all the utilities at the street? And if so, that's great. Could you, if the neighboring has, you know, a 20-gallon per minute well, would they allow you to tap into it and share their well? So there's very, very many questions with it. But yeah, if you can get this piece picked up and build a decent home, you will add so much value just by having that home next to you.
Let's show another empty lot as an example, Kyle. And this one, it looks like a halfway decent neighborhood, but I see some junk laying on the curb on the other side of the street. I see some
The
trash.
shopping cart.
Yeah, this little shed thing behind there looks like it has junk falling out of it. Even though the grass is mowed in this lot, you're gonna have, if you bought this lot to build on, you're gonna have to be a little bit careful with how much money you put into this place.
Absolutely. And I would guess that this lot is a zoning for commercial, or not commercial, but residential 4. So that would put a 4-plex on it or less. And that's probably what I would do with it, because they all look to be rentals around there, not to be judgmental, but they kind of all look like rentals. So that's probably what I would do with it. And it looks to be in a city, so it has city sewer, city, you know, electric, city water. So then you're looking at probably about $20,000 to pull utilities into the lot. Save you a ton of money. I don't know. That's what I would do with
Yeah.
it. Or build a little house that you could rent out. But for more bang for my buck, I'd put a 4-plex. Or
So let's say
duplex.
you were either renting somewhere, or maybe you already own a home, but you're kind of thinking about adding real estate into your investment portfolio. If you bought this kind of a house, a lot of people that I've advised on places like this is that, you know, if you're going to take a loan out to buy the lot, go ahead and do that. But before you go into this whole process, and you have a skill set to where you could do foundation framing, things like that
Right.
yourself, and pull homeowner permits on them, look at what your expendable income is, because you're going to realistically, from when I buy this to how much time could I save the money to put the foundation in,
Right.
and then get that foundation in. The environment's not going to do anything. This foundation's going to be
No.
fine for. So then once I get my foundation in, how long before I can save the money to frame this, put roof over it, and get shingles on it so it's dried in?
Right.
And then, of course, you get plywood, the window openings closed and that sort of thing, so you can keep the riffraff out of your place. But how long to get to that point? And how long would it take to save money up to do that? And then you and your friends and whoever, you come in and get this thing framed up. Well, here's the interesting thing about this. At this point, because of your investment in materials and your investment in time, you just have a small loan on the piece of property. You can then go call up a banker, or any banker really, and say, hey, come take a look at what I got. It's a framed up house sitting on a foundation, and I'd like a construction loan to finish it.
Right.
And you know, the banker starts walking around in this and going, well, you just got a loan on it for the property, and the house is already here, so maybe at this point, you know, the place is worth $200,000, and you got a $40,000 loan on the thing, and you go, I need 70 to finish. Well, you're going to finish with a $110,000 mortgage on something that might be worth $300,000 plus when it's all
Absolutely.
done. And you know what? I had a banker tell me one time, because I've actually done this a number of times and worked with others who have done this. And this is exactly what the banker told me. He said, Kevin, that is such a good deal, such a low risk proposition for a banker. He goes, I'll tell you what, if you find somebody who's in that situation, as long as they can fog this little mirror that I have here, I'm willing to finance that. And he goes, essentially what he is saying is, you don't need any qualifications. That house and that asset more than takes care of any risk they have relative to the loan.
Right.
So,
Small risk.
yes, very small risk to the banker. So, For somebody who may have credit challenges or other reasons why they might consider that's actually a really good way to do that, because you can put yourself in a strong situation quickly. And then all of a sudden, with a $110,000 mortgage, you're sitting in this $300,000 place. You got $190,000 worth of equity. Maybe you sell it in 2 years because you can, with no capital gains. That's 190 grand tax-free money. What do you want to do with it next? So we are talking about all of this and how a first-time home buyer or somebody who is younger or newer in real estate, how you can create wealth rapidly.
That's how.
With good choices. That's one of the ways. No
That's
doubt
how.
about it. I want to visit about one thing quickly that you mentioned a little while back, because I want you to talk about maybe how people ought to consider this. But you mentioned a home warranty. So if somebody buys like one of these fixer-uppers or are ready to move in and they're thinking about doing something else, how important could a home warranty be?
Oh my gosh, it could save you so much money in your first year. So for me, when I'm listing a home, depending upon the home, I typically, if it's an older home and I can see if there's going to be issues already by just walking through it, and they don't have any money to do any repairs or whatever, I will buy my seller a home warranty. And then the home warranty, not only it protects the seller prior to inspection, so anything that comes out in an inspection, realistically, the safety-wise, it will protect them for that, and then it moves on to the buyer. So it transfers right over to the buyer.
Yep.
So it's a great thing for them. And then if it's a buyer I'm representing, again, depending upon the home, if there's some concerns, like we talked about, a 30-year furnace, if it goes kaput, they make a $75 call, and either their furnace is fixed or they get a brand new one.
Yeah.
That's not a horrible deal.
Yeah, not a horrible deal.
And
what does a typical home warranty cost?
About $600 if you are warranting the seller and the buyer. Now, as a buyer's agent, I can't warranty a seller. I can only warranty my buyers. So it's about $600, and it's good. And not to promote one over the other, because I'm sure they're all good in their own way. We represent one called American Home Shield, so I can only really speak truly what they do. So they've just brought in a new program where they're starting to add the roof and the septic and all that other stuff. So it's a full package, and they haven't completely done it all yet, but so even the heat pump, or if you have an in-ground hot tub, they'll warranty that. It can't be above ground.
Yep.
Can't be above ground swimming pool, but they're all kind of added extras. So, you know, it's about $600, and in my mind, if I can give my buyers or my sellers peace of mind
Oh,
all day long, I'm willing to do
complete
it.
peace of mind. They don't have to sit there and worry about all of these. Could this go wrong or that go wrong? What's going to bust my budget? What's going to whatever?
Right.
And yeah, I could see where that would be a really big thing. So.
I think as agents, you know, everybody can do things differently, and I don't do it with all my homes, but I do it with quite a few of them because I can walk in and go, oh boy, I'm going to be staring a lot of things in the face here, and my poor seller does not have the money to do these things. So for me, it makes a world of difference. But so on the other side of it is I bought one, and I knew that the AC unit was bad. I already knew that. So I bought one, but we didn't know why it was bad. Well, a rat had chewed through their lines. That wasn't covered.
Yeah, yeah.
That was not covered. So we ended up, you know, having to put a whole new AC unit on. But, you know, overall, it's paid off. I've saved people up to $7,000. That's the most I've ever saved in a year. And their furnace went kaput. And it was a, gosh, I don't know, 1913 furnace. And I'm like, it's barely holding up. And they warrantied it. And they replaced the whole thing. I'm like, oh my gosh. So yeah, it was well worth it to me.
Good stuff. Well, all kinds of great tips here if you're a first-time buyer and thinking about looking at your real estate choices as investments. I hope you learned something here on the broadcast today. Yes. We did too. Well,
Yeah,
Kevin
thank
Hunter
you.
with Susan Wood and Kyle Torgerson here on Real Estate Savvy. If you're looking to get in touch with Susan, maybe you got some other questions related to real estate, go to northwestdigitalnews.com and click on the Cast tab. And you'll find Susan listed down below there in under Real Estate Savvy. And you can also find her on the web. You just search
Susan Wood.
Susan Wood and Caldwell Banker Bain. You'll find Susan Wood. So do that.
Thank you.
Kevin Hunter with Susan Wood and Kyle Torgerson. Kyle, take us out of here.
This concludes today's live programming on Northwest Digital News. Thanks for joining us for this special broadcast. Heard around the world in more than 70 countries on YouTube, Instagram, Patreon, Facebook, and Twitch TV. If you enjoyed a story or guest we had here on Northwest Digital News and would like to strut your stuff on the broadcast, email us today at wainfo2017@gmail.com or call or text to 360-545-3501. We're always interested in unique stories, topics, and guests to share with our worldwide audience. Before you go, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up and comment on the live stream. And for those of you who'd like to financially support the broadcast, you can do so at patreon.com/Northwest Digital News. We thank you for your patronage. On behalf of Chris Bornstead, Kyle Torgeson, Stephanie Hunter, and all the people that made this broadcast possible, I'm Kevin Hunter. Till next time, take care.